Good evening, my friends. I want to talk about self-worth tonight because this has been on my mind a lot recently, and it really makes me sad how many people live their lives based on what someone else thinks of them, or on anything but who they actually are and who God actually made them to be, like your true self. That makes me really sad. So I wanted to make a video to tell you you don't have to do that anymore. You can stop, and this is how. Um, a little backstory on this. This was like my longest standing pop, honestly, was like basing my self-worth. This video is about self-worth. Basing my self-worth on other people's opinions of me. That was that was me my whole life. Whole life. It sucked. Don't recommend it. Then I started DNRS and I found out that I had a real self. I was like, this is way better. So I want to start with this. This is about, and I do this with my coaching clients a lot, where so much of the work we do in DNRS, and this is life. It's not just DNRS. This is important for any human being to do in order to actually live their own life, is to find your self-worth in who you actually are within yourself instead of exteriorly. And I have a wonderful little image for you. I'm going to leave it here for a bit because this is important. So, as I've said before, I am Catholic, which is why there's Latin in the middle of this picture. Okay, so this is who you are. This is yourself. You are made in the image of God. So the way I see that is that each of us, it's cool because it's said that we are made in the image of God. But I also see it goes both ways. Like, each of us also sees God because God is infinite. We see a part of him that no one else can see. We all see something that nobody else can see. We see some aspect of God. We see God. We see the reality of who God is in a way that truly no one else on this earth can see. Every single one of us, because God is infinite. It doesn't matter how many human beings there are or ever will be. Each of us is truly totally unique and made in the image of God, and we can see something that no one else can. We have a unique gift that no one else has, that is our responsibility to discover, enjoy, and share with the world in whatever way the world needs it. And that is so that's why I wrote image of God. And for some reason, this Latin phrase resonates better with the English. And because we are a spark off of the eternal flame, we are made of God fabric, as I say. We are infinite interiorly. We are made in the image of an infinite God. We are infinite. We all have we all have a God-sized hole inside of us. We are infinite. So this is where true self-worth comes from, is understanding who you actually are. Who you... Understanding who you actually are, because you can't argue with that. You can't argue with a rock. Like, you can't argue with someone. People don't argue about what color the sky is. Like, if something is just a reality, people aren't going to argue with it. They argue about things that aren't tangible because it's not apparent about the reality. And this is the thing, is that reality is spiritual before it's physical, as I've said many times before. And this is simply reality. Like, it's unchangeable, like the color of it's actually more unchangeable than the color of the sky. And this is about why this path of life is about experiencing life experiencing God, experiencing life, experiencing reality. Because once you've experienced something, you're not going to argue with yourself about it anymore. You'll know it. Like, once you experience, I remember even when I was, before I became a mother, I had ideas about what it meant to be a mother. I had ideas of what it would be like to be pregnant or to give birth or to have an infant in my arms. And then there's the reality of it. They're totally different. And once you experience your own inherent oneness with God, that is something given to you as a gift that you cannot remove, you cannot tarnish, you can turn away, you can walk away, you can pretend it's not there. You can act as if it's not there, but it's there. You can't change it. So this is where self-worth comes from. These are the things. So this is where many people find their self-worth to some degree. And this is not, again, like so many things, not comprehensive. I don't know. Everything I do will never be comprehensive because I really believe that that's not possible. But there's some pretty common ones on here where people find their self-worth, your money, your status, and it really just varies. Relationships. I want to explain a couple of these. A super common one, especially for women, but for all people in our culture, is your physical appearance, and also just in terms like in your work, like your work ethic. People they get a lot of self-worth from, workaholics is a very real thing. You get your self-worth, your sense of self, you get your sense of self, like of this is who I am because I do a good job. That's who I am. And that provides you with your sense of self, your sense of self-worth. This is a trickier one, and C.S. Lewis touches on this in a lot of his books, which is part of the reason I love them. Your religion can become your God, and religion is not God. Same thing with philosophy. There's a lot of people who, and also too, this includes atheism, because it doesn't really matter what you believe. It's when the idea becomes God instead of God being God, and the idea just being some way to try to explain or communicate about him or about some other spiritual reality with other human beings. That's the only purpose of a concept, is to communicate something via the concept. But there's the concept and then there's the reality, and they have nothing in common. So you can make your religion God, or your philosophy, or your ability to, again, it used to be me. Like, I used to find my self-worth in how good of a Catholic I was being, and how often I would pray the rosary, or how often I would go to Mass, like daily Mass, and the above and beyond, there's all these things. And it was like, you are a good person because you do this, which is not true. I'm a child of God. I'm a daughter of the King. That is, and I need to behave in accordance with my beliefs and my faith, coming out of a place of being founded in a strong relationship with God, not doing that to somehow earn something that can't be earned. Relationships is another common one for a lot of people. They find their sense of worth and sense of value in their relationships, in their romantic relationships, or as a lot of women I see. I used to do this. I found my self-worth in my motherhood. And ultimately it's very empty, because if any of these then gets shaken, you're left with no core. Like you've taken your self-worth out of yourself. And most of us do this from the time we're born. We're taught to put our self-worth in all of these things, because most people don't understand that this is real. Most people don't even know this exists because we're not taught it. It's nobody's fault. We're just not told that this is real. We're not taught reality in life. We're taught cultural standards and, kind of limbic ways of doing things. But most of us are taught to put our self-worth in these things from a young age. And so we do. And then when life happens and God is trying to teach us, about how to be happy and how to become all that we're meant to be, a lot of times these things end up falling apart and fading because we're not using them properly. And then you're left with nothing because you didn't know that you had a center. You didn't know you had a core. That's what happened to me. That was where my limbic system impairment came in, was when everything that I had attached my value to was gone. Like, I couldn't exercise. My marriage had fallen apart. I couldn't take care of my kids. I couldn't drive anywhere. I couldn't work. I couldn't do anything that I used to tie up my value. So I had nothing. I had no self. Perceived, like, I didn't seem to have a self at that point. And so that's kind of the sad side of the story. That's what is in our culture. It's a very common thing. It's not across the board, but it's common. And when I talk I talk about freedom a lot. And when I'm talking about freedom, what I mean by that is when you have taken your self-worth back from all of these things and the other, because they're, everyone's unique, and we may have gotten a belief cross-wired into our brain at any point in our lives that was attached to something else, that it's not listed here. But anything that's not this, anything that's not the infinite source that lives within you, because God, we are indeed temples of the Holy Spirit. God lives inside of us. There is an infinite abundance that is within us. It just is. And if we're attached, we're finding our self-worth in anything but that, it's cross-wired. And it's, yeah. So, and now where was I going with that? So anyways, that's kind of the sad story, the negative aspect of it. So this is where I'm going to take what's so often seen by our culture, especially by men, I've noticed, but people who don't understand this sort of thing, don't understand interior life, as like, I don't know. I don't even know what they perceive it as, but definitely less than, definitely weak, definitely like an excuse or a cover up for doing the real thing. This is where I am enough and self-confidence. Like, what does that actually mean? How do you take your self-worth back from all of those things and put it within yourself? And it starts by listening to your heart. And that's why I talk about listening to your heart constantly, because we each have a unique universe, like an infinite untapped potential within each of us, literally infinite untapped. Like, it is unbelievable what you can do with this life when you start listening to your heart. There is more energy and drive and determination and ingenuity and creativity and joy and love and abundance inside of you than you could possibly fathom. It's beautiful. When you start tapping into that, and again, a lot of the fear that comes when you start to take your self-worth out of these things, the fear is, I will be kicked out of the tribe and left to die. That's the basic primal fear of your limbic system, is if I piss someone off, they're going to throw me out and I'll be left to the wolves. Literally, that's kind of how the brain works when it comes to relationships. So let's juxtapose that with, that's the idea, is that, oh, if I don't perform well enough, if people don't see me as somehow good enough, then I'm going to get kicked out. If I don't make everyone happy, I'm going to get kicked out. And that's why people end up people pleasing and basing who they are on what other people want them to be or what other people think they are. And in reality, flip that around. And when you come from a place of understanding that you are already enough, God, you are made of God. Like, you are made of God fabric. You can't be not enough. When you come from that place, you're confident. You are, and I have a list of things here. You have self-belief, self-confidence, self-knowledge, when you actually spend that time listening to your heart and getting to know who you truly are. Self-respect and self-love, because again, it's a matter of seeing and experiencing. And this is, I know I talk about pillar number 5 with DNRS, but mood elevation. Like, when you actually tap into what brings you joy and you find your true self, you find what sets you on fire. Like, what work do you love to do? What are you really good at? The things and you'll know, because it's something that you're doing because you love it and for no other reason. Like, that's why I make these videos. That's why I coach people, because I love to. And that's, there's so many people out there who are just geniuses, artists. It's the easiest to see. It's most visible. But I think, everything is art ultimately. When you do it from the heart, it becomes art. It just does. And that's what I mean. Like, it sets you on fire. And you do it just because you love it. And you discover, like, this is what you're made for. And that's such a different way. There's a different. And when you get to know that person, when you get to see that human being that you are, you will respect that person. You will respect the person who you are, that has been waiting to be seen, waiting to be kind of allowed to live, allowed to breathe, allowed to exist, allowed to grow. And there will naturally be a sense of awe and respect and love for your own self, your true self, this person in the middle here who's made of God. And when you do that, that's what I am enough means. It doesn't mean I don't have to work on myself. It means, oh my God, I see who I am. I can see this beautiful, infinite creature that I am, and I choose to respect and honor that person who has dreams and desires and a beautiful, tender, gorgeous heart. And you'll want to grow. And growth is ultimately a process of washing all the exterior stuff off so that interior person can shine. And you'll be very motivated to do the work. Self-discipline, self-knowledge, like all of the things, all of the greatness that you are, when you see the beautiful person that you are, you will not let anything, any stupid petty habits, any negative self-talk, any wasting of time, or all the things people spend so much energy and time trying to fix. So much. I've got to break all these bad habits, and there's so many programs for so many things out there, for eating and for pornography and for spending too much time online, and I waste time doing this, or like I can't stop procrastinating, or there's just so many habits people have. But it's once you encounter God in your own unity with him, you will obliterate all of that stuff naturally. Like, you won't let any of it live. You'll burn it because it gets in the way of this beautiful person that you are. And that's very natural. So what the result is, a person who is who puts out high quality work, who has high quality relationships, who has a lot of personal power and self-discipline and productivity. when you understand that you are enough, that is the end result, is a very high functioning person. Because you're no longer spending all your energy looking for something outside of yourself anymore. You realize that everything you want is already within you. As I've said in my blogs, the kingdom of heaven is within you. That's Jesus, not me, but I've quoted that in my blogs several times. And when you begin to live from that place, you're living from abundance, and you're pouring into your relationships, you're pouring into your finances, you're pouring into your work, you're pouring into your own physical body. You take care of it because it's the thing that houses this eternal spark of God. Like, you're going to honor and respect that and take amazing care of it because of what it is, and for no other reason. That's a good motive. I mean, it's the only real, true, good. Like, it's the only truly good motive. Is that. But that's what it means to have self-worth. To say I am enough, and that's how you take your power back. That's how you stop giving your fucks what other people think about you and build a life that is fulfilled and productive, is when you start by understanding that the kingdom of God lives within you and not outside of you, and you get to stop wasting all of your energy looking for something outside of yourself. And again, if you want a historical view, look at even just the last couple generations. I mean, people who spend their whole lives looking for something outside of themselves end up unhappy, always. Like, no one has ever found what they were looking for outside of themselves. If you study people's lives, you'll see that. No one has ever found anything outside of themselves that's made them truly happy for a lifetime. It doesn't exist. So, that's what self-worth is. I hope this is, again, helpful to pot bust, helpful to give direction and maybe some clarity or insight to where to find the motivation to change yourself, your life. And I mean, this is the process. Like, this is what I do when I coach people. One of the biggest things, because it all comes down to core beliefs, is we usually have core beliefs that are connected, that connect our self-worth to all of these exterior things. And it's a matter of building your sense of self so you have something to fall back on. Because in order to let go, people talk a lot, in this kind of arena of letting go. It's like the monkey bars. If you want to let go of one, you've got to have another one to hold on to. You're not just going to drop into no man's land. You've got to have something else to grab onto. And that's the whole point, is every time you let go of another one of these things, you've got to have built yourself up to be big enough that you can transfer that weight to here. This has got to be strong and stable enough that you can take the weight of your self-worth you are putting into something else and put it back here, and it will hold. So much of this process is building up who you are, and slowly, incrementally, step by step, taking your worth and your invested time and value and energy and emotions and money and your fucks, that's what your fucks are, taking them out of that and giving them back to yourself, putting them back within yourself, taking your power back. That's what the whole process of becoming a person looks like. That's what it is to become human. Yeah. That's how core beliefs, that's all that good stuff. That's what life's all about. Yeah. I hope everyone's having a lovely night, lovely weekend. I hope, again, this is helpful to give clarity, understanding, and all that good stuff. I love you all. Mwah!